How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie, here with my two co-hosts, Mr. Mike Zappy, San Antonio, Texas, Mr. Idris Salam, North Carolina, originally via the Bronx, New York, and I am your host, Richie, originally Far Rockaway, Queens, now residing in St. Cloud, Florida. And today is our favorite preview show of the new season, as it will be forever. It is the NFC East preview. Storylines galore. Washington Commanders, new ownership. They have a winner upstairs. His name's Magic Johnson. He has won in multiple sports in similar roles. It is the Sam Howell era. Dan Snyder is out. This is a team that is hoping to just do things better and to finally rectify some of the wrongs of their past in terms of not just upstairs, but what's happening on the actual field. New York Giants still kind of balling on a budget. They are 1 year away from truly getting out of some of their cap hell. Joe Shane making some good moves, bringing in a bargain pass rusher in Isaiah Simmons. Darren Waller for a third-round pick. He could potentially have a blow-up year similar to his 2019 campaign. So I guess it's safe to say quarterback Daniel Jones finally got some weapons. We've got the Dallas Cowboys, whose season ended abruptly in San Francisco, but one of the top-tier defenses in all of football, and very well possible have the greatest linebacker in the league right now, a guy who is actually getting compared to the great Lawrence Taylor, and with good reason. His name is Micah Parsons, and he is truly phenomenal. The pressure is on Dak and Mike to get it done this particular season. But I will say that I believe the Brandon Cooks edition finally cleans up the hole that was left when Amari Cooper was dealt. And, of course, we have the hated Philadelphia Eagles, who are – they're the kings of the East right now. You got to give them their due, like them or not. They are coming off an NFC championship and a very small margin Super Bowl defeat to Patrick Mahomes, their former coach Andy Reid and co. This division has the most Lombardi trophies. Lineage galore, rivalries galore, and a lot of Hall of Famers. As always, as you guys know, anyone who watches our show, we start from the bottom and moving out up. And we are going to start in the nation's capital with those Washington Commanders. By the way, they could be changing their name again. Last year, 8-1 in 22, fourth place. Missed the playoffs. Key additions via free agency: tackle Andrew Wiley, the former Chief. Quarterback Jacoby Brissett, journeyman, always up for the task when being called upon. Linebacker Cody Barton. Guard Nick Gates, former New York Giant. Taylor Henneke is one of their key losses. He is now the backup in ATL. Linebacker Cole Holcomb with the Steelers. Wes Schweitzer is a member of the Jets as they try to strengthen their O-line. And cornerback Bobby McCain is now a Giant. Wes Martin signing with the Cleveland Browns. Quarterback Carson Wentz is currently a free agent, and I don't believe anybody's going to pick him up unless it gets drastic. This team also signed Eric Bieniemy to be an assistant head coach. I do believe he is the next man up, and Ron Rivera is on short leash. In the draft, I like what they did here. I do think the defense is the strength of this team. Emmanuel Forbes, Jartavius Martin, Ricky Stromberg, the swing center / guard, Braden Daniels, and defensive end KJ Henry. And as I already alluded to, this team is under new ownership, and the name change could indeed occur again. They could potentially even go back to the Redskin name. I'm going to start with you, Idris. We saw how the year ended last year. This is a team that was very much in position to make the playoffs. They made a controversial quarterback change, which many believe hindered that. What are your thoughts on their trajectory this year, and do you think they could be a surprise, similar to 2020 when nobody saw them winning the division?
I think they'll be better than they were last year. And they were pretty decent last year, just the quarterback play. The defense is good. They got McLaurin as a receiver, and he's going to catch what you throw to him. I think they'll still finish last, but I don't think it'll be a last as in they were trash. Because we got a deep division, so I don't see them overcoming Philly. I don't see them overcoming Dallas, and not being a home. I don't see them overcoming us either. So it's just they're in a situation where they're in a tough division, so they'll finish last. I give them 9-8. But I think it'll be a strong 9-8. I think they can surprise some people. Don't get me wrong. And I think, like last year, I think we could still get our division in the playoffs. It's going to be tough, but I think we can. I think Washington will. I think they'll do a whole lot better than they did last year. They're just in a tough division.
We'll get a final record prediction after we go round robin on this. Zappy, you're up, buddy.
All this team needs is Sam Howell to play better than what was arguably the worst quarterback in the NFL last year in Taylor Heineke. This team has a championship defense. They have Scary Terry, which Eric Bieniemy is going to utilize the hell out of him. Jahan Dotson, I'm expecting him to make a big leap forward to becoming a better wide receiver. They have a great backfield in Brian Robinson as well as Antonio Gibson. This team is going to be battling, and I don't think they're going to be finishing in fourth place, and I think they could be a surprise team to finish in second place in the division, but I have them finishing in third. I think they are going to be a very good team. I mean, they were 8-1 last year. It was one mistake by benching Taylor Heineke and then an overtime game with you guys that they very easily could have won. You guys should have won it, but they could have easily won it too. This team's going to be there. They're going to be right there. I think they're going to make leaps forward. I think Sam Howell is that guy. I've been a fan of Sam Howell since his days at UNC. He did take a step back, staying that extra year. But remember, guys, he was considered a top 5 draft pick at one point. And now, we also got to look at this. Ron Rivera is coaching to save his job, and so is Jack Del Rio. These guys are going to have this team ready to play. And the other thing that scares me about them is their defense got better by the addition of Forbes, who was one of the guys that I loved coming out of college. He's got a knack for attacking that ball. He, in my opinion, is going to be right there in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Washington's going to be a good team, man. They're a team that I am keeping a close eye on. A lot of people are already writing them off because they're not sold on Sam Howell. I think they're going to be right there.
We'll hold on the record, as I said. After we all speak on it, we'll give our final prediction for record. Good point, Zappy. I do agree with you to a level that at different junctures of the year, the quarterback combo of Wentz and Heineke was far from desirable. Not quite as bad as what the Jets had last year, but nonetheless, definitely in the conversation as something that just wasn't good enough to be a playoff team. New York Giants punched them in the mouth in Washington after the game you alluded to, the tie. Shortly thereafter, they went with Carson Wentz, and they kind of doomed their season. I think a big thing with this team and how far they can go is if Chase Young can stay on the field. I believe that he is the X factor still because I think when healthy, he is their best player. Terry McLaurin had a scary almost injury that fortunately wasn't too bad. Initially, the reports were it could have been way worse. He'll be suiting up week 1. They have a very favorable matchup week 1 against probably the worst team in the NFL in the Arizona Cardinals. I'm with you on the sense that they got the right quarterback, but I don't think I share your enthusiasm that it's going to translate in year 1. That is a concern of mine with Sam Howell. Now, granted, you did make mention that he was a top 5 quarterback. Would he have left college earlier? I also think that to a level that may have also been a contributing factor because of those around him. Talking about the other quarterbacks. I think this team is going to compete. I think this team is going to fight. But I got this team going 7-10. And not because I don't think they're not better possibly than last year. I do believe that the interconference matchups of having to play the AFC East puts a lot of pressure on not just this Washington team, but the division as a whole. I got this team going 7-10, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the last month of the season they are very much alive. For the division, last year, similar to my New York Giants, they only were able to get one W. This year, I got them winning 2 games in the division. 2 of their 7 wins will be in an ultra-competitive NFC East. They were able to beat Philly, of all teams, last year. They did not beat the Giants nor the Cowboys.
They did beat the Cowboys last year.
Did they really?
With Sam Howell as a starting quarterback.
What week was that? Oh, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
The game didn't matter, but they still won the game.
That's why it kind of left my memory that happened. But yes, you are correct. So they had 2 divisional wins last season. 7-10 for me. Zappy, what's your final record for these guys?
I think they're gonna get. I hate saying it. I think they're gonna split with us. They'll win that late season game, the one that won't matter again. I think they will split with the Giants, and I think they'll be able to sneak one away with the Eagles. Defense wins, man. 10-7.
10-7. All right.
I had them as a 9-8 team last year. I think they're 1 win better than 9-8. Honestly, you take away that tie, they're 9-8. So yeah, I think 10-7 this year for them.
Yeah, my big argument with that is, and I could be proven wrong, it's the schedule. Last year, I think for the most part, we all benefited by playing a very weak AFC South. And don't get me wrong, the division is back, but I do think that definitely contributed and helped. Idris, your final record for these Washington Commanders?
9-8, and I think it's a strong 9-8 because I agree with Zappy. I think they're gonna be tough, man. It'll depend on Sam Howell, and I got faith in the kid. I think he's the truth, and with the enemy, hey. Yeah, so it'll be a strong 9-8.
Scary Terry is going to be scary.
Oh no, he's one of the most underrated receivers. He's one of the most underrated receivers in the league. I will not dispute that fact.
It'll be a problem, dude.
So 7-10 for me, 9-8 for Idris, 10-7 for Zappy. I like this. Nobody agrees. That makes it more interesting. We're gonna move it along.
On Carson Wentz. I heard the Chiefs are looking at him.
Oh boy,
to bring him in. Yeah.
Well, who's their current backup? I know that Henne retired. Is it Blaine Gabbert? I believe it's Blaine Gabbert.
I think it's Gabbert.
They could probably upgrade there. And you know what else? Let's not forget, Andy Reid does have a soft spot. That is his former quarterback. So stay tuned on that. And
quarterbacks now too. So
and not all of these rosters are completely cut down. So we're going to be getting more alerts, possibly even during the show. Right. We're going to move it along to East Rutherford, New Jersey. The New York Giants last year, 9-7-1, making their first playoff appearance since 16, winning their first playoff game since 11, which was Super Bowl 46. Key additions, Darren Waller via trade with the Vegas Raiders. The Raiders did well by drafting Michael Mayer. I think he's going to be a boss in a year or two. Isaiah Simmons recently acquired for a 7th rounder. He almost got his hands on Aaron Rodgers on the preseason game. Pure speed, a lot of potential. A'Shawn Robinson, Nunez Roche, Bobby Okereke, wide receiver Paris Campbell. These are all via free agency moves. In my opinion, the Giants did acquire through the draft the best center available, best center on the board, best center in the draft class, period. John Michael Schmitz. Deonte Banks, not a big pick guy, but he's a guy that's going to be batting down a lot of passes. Some of the losses here, Julian Love signing with the Seahawks, guard Nick Gates, cornerback Fabian Moreau, who I actually was a fan of last year. Richie James, he's a 49er now. Nick Williams signing with the Chargers. He was a depth piece. Also want to make mention, I think the Giants did phenomenal in the draft getting their hands on Jalen Hyatt. I wouldn't consider him a favorite for Rookie of the Year offensively, but I do think he'll be in the conversation. I think a guy like a Jordan Addison probably has the best situation, being that he's opposite of Justin Jefferson, even though his combine numbers weren't exactly up to snuff and a little disappointing. I think he's in a great situation in Minnesota, but we'll see how that pans. Last year, similar to the division, I try to be fair. The Giants were not able to really win any games in this division, with the exception of the Washington rematch. We got swatted down in a bad way 2 out of 3 times to the Eagles. The third game was a game comprised of backups. The Dallas Cowboys, while I do think we competed with them in the second half, the Cowboys were able to run away from us in both games, more noticeably on Thanksgiving. This is a team that I think health, like anything else, is going to be a huge variable. You have a potential beautiful pass rush and the edges between Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari. Ojulari has had issues staying on the field. I think that was part of the motivation of bringing in a guy like a Simmons. I like what this team also did in the secondary. I really believe that Deonte Banks is going to be a very good corner in this league for a very long time. I myself initially wanted Joey Porter, but after revisiting a lot of the game film, I feel that although Porter might be the more electrifying player, I think he's also the player that is more likely to get burned because he takes more chances. Banks has been very good in this short sample size with the preseason. In the offseason, they had issues with Saquon Barkley because of the very porous running back market, but he is back. He has been quoted recently as saying he wants to be a Giant for life. But like anything else in a quarterback-driven league, I think this team goes as far as Daniel Jones can take them. I think Joe Shane has done an excellent job of giving him the most possible amount of weapons he can on a budget. I think next year is where the Giants can truly spend money. The pros and the cons of the schedule. I believe 5 of the final 8 or 6 of the final 8 are actually home games, but it's that first 10 that is going to be truly brutal. I mean, you're talking about 7 out of 10 to start the season on the road. It is literally the first time in NFL history that any team has had to take on that task. I'll say it like this. If the Giants are at least 5-5 after the first 10, I do believe they could be a 9 or 10 win team, excuse me, and get into the playoffs. In the NFC, I think 9 is the magic number if we're talking a 7 seed. Anything less than 9 wins will not get in, but I think the safe thing, air of caution thing, you got to get that 10th win. Last year, it actually required a tie. I'll give you my final prediction in just a bit, but I will say this. While I humbly do not believe that roster-wise we are better than the Cowboys nor the Eagles just yet, I do think that the front office is showing that we are closing the gap in terms of talent. Last year was predicated off of phenomenal coaching between Mike Kafka, the play caller, between Wink Martindale, the DC, and obviously Brian Dable did win Coach of the Year. I will give my final prediction in a bit. But I will say this. The Giants, I still have them finishing 3rd. And I'm going to elaborate on where they finish after you boys talk. Zappy, you're up.
What was once a weakness is now a strength. The wide receiver core last year was, you had grocery baggers, you had all types of guys out there.
I was going to try out.
Yeah, we all could have tried out. But now you input Paris Campbell into that offense. You input Jalen Hyatt, who I think is going to be a great rookie wide receiver and your eventual number 1 wide receiver. You input Darren Waller. These are all good pieces. But what I worry about with this Giants team are your 2 guard positions. I think that's going to hurt you guys, especially when it comes to running the ball when it matters most, because when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, you need to be able to run the ball. And you're playing a lot of good defenses this year, especially defenses that can stop the run. And then also, while your secondary is improving, I think Deonte Banks is still a year away. Teams are going to feast on him. That's just how it is for rookie cornerbacks. Not every cornerback that's drafted is a Sauce Gardner. Let's just be real. I've dealt with it. It's most teams deal with it.
And we hit that home run on his evaluation. Sorry to interrupt you, but just
you're fine.
To make a common point, you and I both saw that going back to his earlier college years, we knew what he was going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And the things what I'm going to look for is I want to see if Daniel take the next step. He made great improvements last year by reducing the amount of turnovers. Check. Now, can he make the next step and make those critical throws that he needs to on third down? If he can do that, this Giants team will be right there. I think this Giants team is going to be right there in a very competitive NFC East. However, I think it's going to come down to week 18. Because if you look at the beginning of the schedule, yes, I have this team starting off 4-7 is the way I have them starting off after that Washington game. But going into weeks 18, I think this team will be 8-8 versus Philly at home. Will they be able to finally stop the train and beat Philly? I won't say what I think is going to happen yet. I'll let Idris speak, but I will say going into week 18, I believe this Giants team will be 8-8.
This is scary because your train of thought is so similar to mine. And I'm going to let Idris unpack, and then I'm going to tell you what I think. Go ahead, buddy.
You know, I love our coach, man. And I've seen what he did last year.
He's amazing.
Bring the best out of, like you said, like Zappy said, grocery baggers, which I wouldn't even give him that much credit. I think they were less than that. They might have been stockers or something.
Yeah. They were the guys on the pallets.
No, they were the guys collecting the grocery carts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we saw what he did with Richie James and all of them. He just pulled these guys off the couch and said, look, get out there and win me a game. Mm-hmm. And the way he treated Daniel Jones week 1, when he threw that interception.
Oh, yeah.
He said, hey, look here. And after that, Daniel Jones' whole religion changed. You know.
Baptism under fire, my man. Baptism under fire. He wasn't playing that shit.
Nah. And Deontay Banks, I agree with Zappy. He's like a year away, but I think he'll thrive because, like I said, I see Dable bring the best out of him.
Not to mention number 2 coverages. Number 2 coverages, which is beneficial because Adori's going to draw the CD Lambs and the AJ Browns of the world.
And we got John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. That's what I call him.
Love him.
The center, you know. Every time I see his name, that's what I cuss him back. Bye-bye. Best center in the draft, and we've needed center for how long? You know, we didn't have Nick Gates.
Yeah, man. A guy that we could depend on for a decade, not a season or two. We've always had stopgap guys. You know, Pugh for a short while was from a metric standpoint was that dude for a little bit, very versatile. Yeah. And he's even been they've even flirted with his name. I think they're going to give Ben Bredeson every opportunity to claim the guard spot. I'm not a big fan of Matt Pert, but I want him to prove me wrong. He is a better run blocker than pass blocker. And Zappy did allude to the fact we got to get better in run blocking. So, you know, maybe Matt Pert could work his way in. Glowinski's a good veteran, but he is on the wrong side of his age.
He's going to dash that, yeah. And Jalen Hyder, I see how Jones and him are really getting some real good chemistry. The same with Waller.
And I think Waller could conceivably see 100 passes
as long as he stays healthy. Healthy. And the drafting of Eric Gray, I think that'll be a good relief for Saquon. Because they're almost like the same type of back. So I think we'll be better this year. I say I'll hold my record off until we all do our little thing on that. But I see third place because Dallas is Dallas. You know, they're gonna throw, and we gotta stop that. Philly, we'll get to Philly.
You know, it's interesting because off air, Zappy spoke to me from a personnel level. Who do we match up with better? And I think he and I both came to the same conclusion that on paper, the Giants are supposed to match up better with the Eagles. Yeah. But I do believe, oddly enough, last year we played the Cowboys more competitively. But this is the thing, and I speak on behalf of my own opinion. This is not the opinions of – I'm not speaking for my team. Sometimes a team is just better and they run your ass over. We had a time where we did it to them. They've had a time where they've been doing it to us more recently. But I do believe that there is some capacity of a mental block and an emotional block when it comes to playing the guys in green, in Kelly Green. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to give a ton of respect for both programs that we are a little bit behind. my final record for the Giants is almost identical to what Zappy was painting. Initially, if somebody would ask me a couple weeks ago, I'd be like, yeah, 10-7, 10-7, 10-7. But I can't discount how difficult the first 10 are. I think this team is – I don't know about 4-7. I'm not buying that one. I was thinking more along the lines of 6-5 or 5-6 at that juncture. Either way, I could see a scenario where the Giants, similar to what Zappy's train of thought is, are either 9-7 or 8-8 going into that final week, give or take the one win they need to beat Philly in Week 18 to make the playoffs. I think they will. I think that's where their balls drop, and I think that will set it up where the East sends 3 again. And I think it's going to be a character-defining moment for this team no matter what happens in the playoffs, because this is just the beginning of a strong rebuild. And I believe that, coming into over $50 million in cap space next year, the Giants are going to be in a position to be a good team for a good while. And I got some thoughts about what that Giant win does. I might be jumping the gun just a bit here, but let's just say that there's this other team that plays in Arlington that's going to benefit tremendously if the Giants win that game against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm going to put that right there.
What's your record?
9-8. And we are going to help. Jesus, this feels weird. We're going to help the Dallas Cowboys win the East.
I'm going 10-7.
I'll take it a step further. Sorry to interrupt you. Even if we don't make the playoffs, we're going to punch Philly in that last game. And one way or the other, it's going to be a confidence build. It could be like the Lions did to the Packers last year, or it could be to punch our own ticket. But I'm staying on the optimistic side of things. We will be a playoff team, but I am calling for the Giants to fall one peg back in terms of standings, a few pegs forward in terms of who they are now. 9-8, 7 seed.
I'm going 10-7, 7 seed.
Okay, so you got 10 being the magic number for the final seed, and I don't think that's out of the question because Zappy made some good points about the guys in Washington, and there's some other teams that can definitely surprise this year. One of them plays in Atlanta. We're going to see. Zappy, your final call for the Giants record before we move along to your team.
There will be 3 seconds left on the clock. It will be 22-20, Philly with the lead. Graham Gano will line up for a 53-yard field goal, a game-winning field goal, and it will go right down the middle of the uprights. The Giants will finish the season 9-8. We'll have great momentum going into what will be a very good offseason for the team because I still think this Giants team is a year away, but it's going to build for a great 2024. 9-8, good for 4th in the division, will miss the playoffs, could possibly sneak in. I mean, we can't rule out the fact that we can get it 4 in this year, but I think that Week 18 game is the difference, which will put Dallas in prime position. I mean, we're transitioning into Dallas, but yeah, I think you guys win that Week 18 game, finish 9-8, but we'll carry that momentum into a very good offseason because you brought up very good points about having money, and you're going to know if you're going to bring Saquon back or not. If you don't sign him, that's money that's going to be used towards the guard position because I think that will be your number one thing to aim for.
I can see them going about it both ways, one in the draft, one via free agency. Last thing I want to say before we move it along to your team, and I want to reiterate this to my fan base. Missing the playoffs, but being a better team in year 2 of this regime is not necessarily a step back. It just means that everybody around us is a little bit better. And I'm not talking about the division, so to speak. I'm talking about who we play because, like I said, and I make no excuses, I tell the truth. I'm very proud of what my team accomplished last year, whether they made the playoffs or not. But make no mistake, if we didn't have 4 games against the AFC South last year, there are very rare seasons where you could win one division game and still get in. And let's be real, it was exposed when we played the 2 big dogs in this division. This is the year the Giants closed the gap. They're coming into some good money in 24. But two of the 3 of us got them getting in, so we'll see how it plays.
And you bring up a great point. That is actually one of the best points. 9-8, missing the playoffs, I think you guys will be a better team than last year.
Absolutely.
Just, it's just the schedule says it, but next year we play the Chiefs division. So that right there is going to be a little different, Well, we won't talk about that right now because we have a whole year to go, but yeah.
I might have to get up to Jersey if we are indeed playing Vegas in Jersey. I got to see, because this year we got them in Vegas, so we'll see how that flips. But my Uncle Randy and my sister's guy are 2 Raider fans, and I like talking shit to them. Dallas Cowboys 12-5 in 22, second place in the East. Eliminated in the divisional round against the 49ers. Key additions recently: quarterback Trey Lance via the trade with the Niners, wide receiver Brandon Cooks via trade, running back Ronald Jones II. Has he been released yet, Zap?
No, and I was wrong. I forgot next year's the AFC North. No, he's suspended the first 2 weeks. He's still on our roster.
Okay.
As far as what will happen, I'm still waiting on the news if we do acquire James Conner. But anyways, continue. No,
you're good. Shoemaker, I really like this draft pick, being that Dalton Schultz is gone. You still have Hendershot, Fahoku. I like the developmental moves that this team made in the draft. Not every player you drafted is going to immediately make an impact, but I think for big picture purposes, you guys did very well. As I already alluded to, Schultz is now a Texan. Kicker Brett Maher signed with the Broncos. He's a very good kicker that just had a very horrible week. Outside linebacker Anthony Barr is still a free agent. I do believe that he will be picked up by someone because he's got a hell of a brain for the game. The Zeke Elliott loss, while I don't see him as a premier rusher anymore or the guy who could carry a team on his back like he did for so long, I do believe that you will miss him to a level because of what he brings in terms of picking up blocks, doing the little things that don't get on the stat sheet. I think Zeke Elliott was elite in that regard, and he is still elite in getting short yardage. Make no mistake, even if the Patriots aren't a playoff team, they're a better team with him than without him. Mm-hmm. But I would say the absolute best pickup that your team made this year is Brandon Cooks. This is a guy that no matter what team he plays for, has always adjusted to whatever quarterback he had and always manages to keep a similar stat line. And it says a lot about him as a player. He always adjusts. Mm-hmm. He's very adaptable. He's very intelligent. And I think that was the missing ingredient that your offense was missing last year. Because last year, the fall off from a CeeDee Lamb to a question mark, and then you got a bunch of number 3s. Now you officially have your number 2, who once in a while could put on the Superman cape and be the number 1. So I do believe that your team did very well in that regard. I will say this, though, Zappy. There's no denying the ability of this team. But in the event that they fall short of an NFC title game appearance, I do believe that your coach in waiting is already in the facility. His name is Dan Quinn. And I also believe that you guys traded for Trey Lance more than just to bring him in as a gadget player, similar to what the Saints do at Hill. I think they have aspirations to groom him into being the quarterback of your future. Dak Prescott, this is a make-or-break year for him on so many levels. Same can be said for former Super Bowl winning head coach Mike McCarthy. But the way I look at it is if you guys can, for the most part, avoid the injury bug, I really believe that you are the division winner. Because I look at last year, right? And unfortunately, we didn't get to see Dak versus Hurts once. We got a mixed bag of other matchups. And in both games, you guys were able to score on each other. And both of you guys have arguably the 2 best defenses in the league. You could invite the Miami Dolphins, New York Jets, and San Francisco 49ers to the party as well. Tony Pollard, haven't spoken on him yet. Premier running back. I think his numbers are going to get even better in the receiving game. And if there is something that Dallas is missing, Zappy alluded to it, there is a potential James Conner trade coming because Arizona's unloading everything. I think they need a player like a Conner to completely complete this roster and be a true contender for the Super Bowl. I don't think Super Bowl's out of the question. That's not necessarily where I have them finishing, but I do think that if things go the proper way, the Dallas Cowboys can get past that second round, which they have struggled with for so many years. I'll give you my final prediction once you guys go. If you want to hit middle, Zappy, and then I'll let you get the final word on them as well. That way you don't got to listen to two Giants in a row.
I don't mind listening to two Giants. Look, that Tony Pollard injury last year in the divisional game against the 49ers was the difference. Yeah, we could talk about Dak's 2 interceptions all we want, but as soon as Tony Pollard was taken out of the game, all we had was CeeDee Lamb. He still had a good game, but we needed another guy that could stretch the field. That's where you insert Brandon Cooks. A lot of people say, including myself, we say, oh, well, we had Amari Cooper. True, we did. But here's the difference. We had Amari Cooper with a young CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is now a hoss in the NFL. This guy is a beast. He is a true number one receiver, and he's going to have himself another big year because he wants to get paid, and he wants to get paid big dollars. I look at the Dallas Cowboys roster, and I say this. They have the best roster in the NFC East. They have the best roster in the NFC, and they arguably in the NFL. They made the proper additions through the draft as well as through trades and not free agency. Free agency, we didn't do a damn thing, but we did go out and get one of the defensive player of the year in Stephon Gilmore. We did go out and get a 1,000-yard receiver in Brandon Cooks. And then we go draft Amazi Smith, a one technique that this team has been dying for years, and we finally got that. We finally have a run stuffer. He's going to be behind Jonathan Hankins for at least the first 6 weeks.
And you went to Michigan 2 times in a row.
And then we go to get Schoonmaker, who I think is a great compliment. Schoonmaker is going to be the blocking tight end to allow Ferguson to be the blocking / receiving tight end, because Ferguson is going to be a great receiving tight end. We've already seen it on full display last year. This team does not have any question marks anywhere except for 2 things: your short yardage back and Dak Prescott. Mike McCarthy, I've thought about it long and hard. Mike McCarthy is not going anywhere. Trey Lance is a Mike McCarthy type quarterback. Think about Aaron Brooks. He's a guy that was groomed by Mike McCarthy. Aaron Brooks had himself a good career. If he would have been on a better team, he probably would have won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But I look at what Jerry Jones said. Yeah, we were looking at drafting Jalen Hurts. And then we had a high draft grade on Trey Lance. And no, I did not consult with Dak Prescott or Mike McCarthy to go get Trey Lance. This is putting all the pressure on Dak and not Mike McCarthy. This team should have beat the 49ers last year. They should have. The year before. And the year before too. But it was 2 critical interceptions by Dak. We have seen this story time and time again. I got off the Dak bandwagon. I have 1 foot back in because we did go out and get Brandon Cooks, because we do have the weapons. We have proved over the last few years that, well, for one, we're a top 5 offense, one of the top scoring offenses with Dak in the lineup.
Zap, I want to interject on one thing you said because it's kind of appropriate for the analogy. You made a mention of how a Trey Lance could very much fit into the Mike McCarthy way of doing things. And it just sparked a memory in my brain about another former Green Bay guy. I'm going to talk about Ben McAdoo super briefly. While I don't applaud anything that Ben McAdoo did as head coach of the New York Giants, one thing that we could probably agree on, I don't necessarily think that Dak is McCarthy's guy, just as much as I knew that Eli wasn't McAdoo's guy. McAdoo wanted to go out and get Patrick Mahomes. So if he was ever right about one thing, I would say that he had a good eye for quarterback talent, because that's what he did best. He certainly wasn't a great head coach, and he lost his locker room. But anyway, back to you. I just wanted to make the analogy.
No, it's – so, yeah, you put all those pieces together on top of, the 2-time runner-up and defensive player of the year in Micah Parsons. He's added 15 to 20 pounds, and that dude looks like an animal. I've never seen Tyron Smith get tossed to the ground, and Micah has done that practice after practice. This guy is ready to carry this team. He is. And you need that from a defensive player. Dan Quinn finally has his defense in place. The offense is there. It comes down to number 4. Can he make those critical plays? Regular season, he's done it year in and year out. He's a great regular season quarterback. It's the postseason that matters most. I think this team wins the division this year. A lot of that is going to be benefiting to that Week 18 game. But even then, I think Dallas will have the division wrapped up Week 17. And Week 18, Philly will just lose to the Giants. But yeah, Dallas wins the division. Dak has himself another great year. Tony Pollard will be phenomenal running back. And we will take that running back by committee approach. Deuce Vaughn is an animal.
I'm glad you mentioned him. I'm glad you mentioned him.
It's going to be fun to watch him play. It really is. But I'll go with that, man. I mean, it's like I said, you can't find anything negative about this team except for short yardage back and Dak Prescott and how he overcomes that.
Idris, you are up, and then the three of us will give our final record predictions for the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay. I agree with everything both of y'all said, and I'm not going to speak none of it. I think Dallas has the best roster in the league, period. I'm talking defense, offensive defense. I think they got the best roster in the league. I felt that way last year, and I felt that way the year before. And when Mike McCarthy got hired, I told Cowboy fans, he is not your he's not your coach. There's a reason why he got ran out of Green Bay. Because and I heard this from Cowboy fans, yeah, we're gonna do this. I said, Mike McCarthy likes to throw the ball. He will talk,
a little too
run,
much,
run.
Little
run,
imbalanced.
run,
I can
run,
see
run.
that.
But if you look at his history, going back to Green Bay, he loves to throw the ball. When he came to Dallas, run. He drafted CeeDee Lamb, throw. Yes, Zeke got his carries, but he likes to throw. This year, I'm calling the plays. We're going to run the ball. What does he do? Go against Brandon Cooks. I want to throw. That's Mike McCarthy. And this is not no smack towards the Cowboys. That's Mike McCarthy. He loves to throw the ball. Deuce Vaughn is going to be a beast. To be honest with you, I wanted him because I watched him at K-State, and I said, if that kid doesn't look like Barry Sanders, I love that guy. He went to Dallas. I wanted him. I wanted Deuce
most
Vaughn.
Exciting player.
That's it. I wanted Deuce Vaughn. I said maybe he will come. I said maybe the Giants will draft him. I wanted him. I really did. Although I don't like the Cowboys, I want to see that kid succeed. I really do. I've been a fan of him.
Shed infiltrating with this Niners love here on the East show. And then you wonder why I always tell people they're our third biggest rival after the Eagles and Cowboys. It ain't those guys in Washington. It's these guys. And now even more so, he's infiltrating the East show. And yes, it is true. They have a lot of talent over there.
Dallas has receivers for days, and they all can get it done. But like we all said, number 4.
Yeah, number 4 it's going to come down to. That remains to be seen. It's hard for me to totally buy because I feel that Romo was the guy that was going to do it for them if they ever gave him what Dak has now. I thought Romo was going to be that guy.
I love Romo. This roster is better than the 2007 Romo Cowboys when they had 13 Pro Bowlers.
I could see that. If everybody stays healthy, I do think that's sensible, actually.
And as I said about Trey Lance, I don't think he's going to be much. Who knows? But I think that's a dangling tool to push Dak. That's going to be in the back of Dak's mind the whole season. If I screw up, my replacement is sitting right over there on the bench.
I mean, shit, dude. You saw last year, Cooper Rush had to lose a game. They weren't gonna start Dak until Cooper Rush lost a game. They needed him to lose at least one game.
Well, they needed him to lose the most important game.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It also helps when you lose to your biggest threat.
I always say the problem is Dak, and the problem is the GM.
I will say this much about Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry he's great on talent. He can spot talent across the globe, but he meddles. If he got a GM in there and said, run the team, Dallas would be just like Dallas when Jimmy had him.
We have a GM. His name is Will McClay. They just won't give him that title.
Yeah.
You know,
He's kind of like he's like the silent partner.
yeah, he's the reason why we've been drafting so well. Yes. No, I do know what you mean.
It's valid. It's valid.
If Jerry let someone run the team, because I always said even back then in the 90s, I said if Jerry let Jimmy run that team, they still be winning Super Bowls. They have 10 or more.
Well, I mean, that was a whose dick is bigger situation back then. Fellas, your final records for these Dallas Cowboys. I'll go first. I got the Dallas Cowboys winning the NFC East with a record of 12-5. I don't have anybody in this division winning 13, mainly because it's a credit to how difficult the whole schedule is going to be. 12-5. I'm going to go 4-2 in the division. They win this division next year. 12-5 for the Dallas Cowboys, division winners.
Same here. 12-5 division winners.
12-5. What do you got, Zap? You know he's going to say 13. Look at him.
No,
he might say 16.
We all agree.
We all
agree. 12-5. Yeah.
Two giant.
Last time the Cowboys had 3 consecutive 12-win seasons was in the 90s. That's why I don't see Mike McCarthy going anywhere.
Brett and Jerry Jones have a honeymoon coming up, I think. That's awesome.
And Aaron Rodgers is going to be the one marrying them.
Jesus. On his it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Maybe it involves a darkness retreat as well. All right. The Philadelphia Eagles last year winning 14 games, losing 3, 2022 first place in the East. They lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Key additions, running back DeAndre Swift, running back Rashad Penny, quarterback Marcus Mariota, who I actually think is a nice pickup for what they do there. Inside linebacker Miles Jack, I like that pickup as well. Contavious Street, not overly enthused, but I do like these 2 pickups, Greedy Williams and Olamide Zaccheaus. Want to pause this here for a moment on Zaccheaus. Zappy actually pointed this out to me. I wasn't aware. Going into the regular season, the Eagles are only carrying 4 wide receivers on the roster, in part because they have so many damn guys on the defensive front line. That is kind of unprecedented in today's NFL to do that. I don't think it's going to be for the whole ride, but going in, Zaccheaus is not a bad guy at number 4. I saw him in limited duty in Atlanta. I think he has a lot of talent. It goes without saying, Quez Watkins is a true burner, and the 1-2 of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown may very well be the absolute best in the league. My pick is Tua Waddle with Hill, of course. But, they're in the conversation. They have a really good wide receivers coach out there. Just saying. He gets a lot out of that group, and much respect is due. They also have a hell of an offensive line coach. One of the best offensive lines, if not still the best in the league. But this is my worry for them. I feel that you spent money on 2 guys that consistently get hurt in your running back room. Now, they didn't break the bank, so to speak, but I do think that it could potentially be troublesome because they did let the most capable workhorse leave the building. That would, of course, be Miles Sanders. This O-line, as I already alluded to, is a year older. They're really good, but they are a year older defensively. When I look at some of the pieces that left, some of the pieces that came in, I'm not completely sold that they are better than last year. It goes without saying that talent is there. Do I think they have the best coach in the division? No. And respectfully, Zappy, I don't even think the Cowboys do. I think the best coach in the division actually resides in East Rutherford, New Jersey. But, he's only in year 2, so I don't want to get crazy on that. And plus, we're talking about this team.
Not to cut you off, though. I know you mentioned Miles Jack. He's not on the team. He retired last week.
He retired last week?
Yeah.
Oh, damn. Wow. I wasn't even aware.
Yeah.
Me neither.
I was actually hype about that move, not for them, but just because I always enjoyed watching them play.
Yeah, it was his the same issue he had at UCLA. Everything, his knee caught up to him, which everyone thought it would. But yeah, he retired last week.
Point to be made, Zap. I don't think this team has a better roster than they did last year. I still think that they are more than capable of getting to the playoffs and still being a threat. I'm going to get my prediction out early, being that we are coming into the 11-minute mark. I got this team going 11-6. Good enough for second in the division. but I do not have them as the same dominant force that they were a year ago. I still think Jalen Hurts is going to have a good year, but I do think that some of the warts could actually show up a little bit because the reality is, guys, is that they're not a secret anymore what they do. And I think that more is going to have to happen in terms of Jalen doing more on his own, creating on his own. I mean, when you run behind that kind of O-line, life is kind of easy. But I think this particular year, it's just my genuine opinion. I think Dallas has a better roster. And, even if I didn't think Dallas has a better roster, when's the last team that lost the Super Bowl that went back to their and it's so rare that happens. It's super rare.
The Stan Humphrey curse.
No, it's super rare.
Exactly.
It's super rare that it goes down like that, So, New England lost in 17, and correct me if I'm wrong, in 18 they won and beat the Rams. But the point I'm making is that it's super, super rare. It just doesn't happen frequently.
But New England had already been there.
Yeah, they've been there a billion times. So it's almost
Tom
like
Brady.
Yeah, it's almost like they shouldn't even be in that. They shouldn't be allowed to qualify for that conversation.
No, the conversation is the team that goes to the Super Bowl with a first-time quarterback. That's the conversation. Those are the teams that have not made it back, and that's where we inserted Jalen Hurts. It was his first time making it to the Super Bowl. They lost. A game they should have won.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure.
That's where the conversation is with the Eagles.
11-6 for me. They're a very good football team. I just don't think they're better than the Cowboys right now. That's my honest opinion.
I look at this Eagles team. Yeah, I got you. I look at this Eagles team and I look at their roster, and they kept a lot of players on defense, which tells me losing 6 starters on that defensive side of the ball. Well, yeah, they did go draft more Georgia players. That's the common saying right now.
Yes.
Fact of the matter is, when you lose 6 starters on one side of the ball, that tends to affect the team. I don't care who that team is.
And Zap, off air, what did I tell you about them keeping so many defensive players? I said it's because I don't believe that they have enough guys who are every down guys. So it's going to be like a wholehearted committee effort. And I'm not saying that can't work, but I don't think they're as talented completely as a unit as they were a year ago. Offensively, they're still there. The O-line is a year older, though. And those guys take the biggest beatings of all. One of the most underrated, viewpoints is what offensive lines go through and how much it takes to keep the cohesion.
Yeah, and look, the other thing you got to look at with this team, they are one of the older teams in the NFL. And that's a bottom line. Keeping 4 receivers on the team. Yeah, Charleston Rambo was the 5th one, but he's on IR, so bye-bye. You have 2 injury-plagued running backs. Lane Johnson, he hasn't completed a season in a while. Jason Kelsey's a year older. Fletcher Cox is older. Brandon Graham is older. Like you said, they brought back some key players, but they're older. And they have depth, but it's not the kind of depth they had last year.
I've got a hot take on Kelsey. He's going to retire at year's end. And it might be earlier than his prime suggests, because I still think that he's still playing at an elite level. I just think that his body after this year is going to be like, dude, you did it all. It's time.
They got lucky to bring him back. Anyways, I'm going to agree with you. 11-6. That's where I have them. Possibly 10-7. And the only reason why I say 10-7 is I keep flipping back and forth with that week 1 game in New England. Something tells me New England is going to surprise them that day. I don't know why.
I'll take it because we're going to surprise you that day too. Mr. Salam, you are up for the close.
Everything you guys said, they lost a lot on defense. They got older. Miles Sanders being gone, I'm like, it's a big joke. You got 2 running backs, like I said, injury prone. They lost their OC. They lost their DC. You're bringing in new players, new system. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. Yeah, I know they got a bunch of Georgia players, but you still have to learn the game. You still got to learn the game.
And Jalen Carter is risky, bro, because of his off the field. It's a character thing with me, bro. Listen, when you leave, when you leave your friends, so to speak, that's bigger than football to me. That's a character thing. Because let me tell you something. There is nobody on this panel that I'm looking at right here, or extended members of this podcast family, that I would ever leave high and dry in a situation. That speaks to a bigger issue when we talk about character. And I don't necessarily know if there's somebody that I want to welcome in my locker room, no matter how talented. And yes, he is really a great football player.
And you going up to Philly. The Philly.
And say what you want. We love to break balls about, how much we hate them and how much they hate us. But at the end of the day, that is a gritty city that doesn't take any fake bullshit. Can we agree on that much?
Just like New York.
1,000,000%.
They're going to come at you just as hard. The media and the fans. Our fans will be a little bit calmer. Philly fans are rabid.
Those 3 extra Lombardis help with the calmness. Those 3 extra Lombardis help with the calmness. But there's another C word that they also helped with, and that's why I'm glad we finally got the right regime in there. It's called complacency.
Exactly. I agree with you guys. I'm going 11-6, maybe 10-7. It's feasible. It can happen. Like I said, New England, who knows? New England may shock someone. You still got a coach up there to know what the hell he's doing.
He certainly does. And I'm going to take this one final thought on this Eagles team. I think Nick Sirianni's a good coach, but I don't think he's as good as the media plays him up to be. Because sometimes when you get these guys that hit the top so quickly, there's nowhere to go but down after that. Unless if you're a Bill Parcells or a Bill Belichick or a Tom Coughlin or a Bill Walsh, or name those caliber of coaches, the Tomlins, the Dungies, those kind of guys, then quite frankly, there's a distinct possibility that you might not be that great as they prop you up. And when I saw Jalen Hurts, who I have a ton of respect for, even though I absolutely hate that team, when I see him calming down his head coach, when I see the head coach getting live with assistants, to me, you're showing a lack of control that your team doesn't need to see. And the thing about Sirianni that I'm not a big fan of is that he always makes it about him in terms of, I've never dug the guys that want to be bigger celebrities than their players. That's just me personally, and that's how I feel. And maybe I'm reading it wrong, but that's what I see.
We'll see what
that dude never saw a camera. That dude never saw a camera that he didn't like.
We'll see what happens this year, like I said, because he lost his OC in DC, got a whole new set in there. Let's see what happens. Let's see how he manages. I'm not cool on him either. And with Philly, you know how Philly, they're not loyal to quarterbacks and coaches.
And in my opinion, he's fortunate that he's retaining his receiving coach, because in my opinion, those 2 receivers, in many ways, outside of who you have playing center, are essentially the heartbeat of your team and the heartbeat of your trajectory, because that combination is really exceptional. I got to say that. And if Quez Watkins ever truly masters the route tree, that's a scary thought, because that dude is a burner. Anything else you guys want to add before we get out of here? We're coming up on about the 90-second mark.
Dallas, Philly, Giants, Skins.
To the viewers, and I'm going to speak to the boys after the show's over. Look for us every Wednesday coming up between 8:30 and 9. We'll be making weekly announcements on how early you're going to see our mugs. There might be a couple of 8:30s or 8:45s in there, probably, and hopefully a few more 9s, because we struggled today to get up this early, and I got a tropical depression behind me, so I don't necessarily think I'm going to work today.
Right.
There's no need to go to work. It's time to play some Madden. It's time to relax, crack open a nice cold one. It's just it's hump day.
Nice cold one. It's 10 a.m. This man's talking about having a nice cold one already.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, sir.
Y'all got Madden 24. Y'all got what? Y'all got PS what? 4s?
I'm still rocking with the 4 because I still play enough video games, but I'm still rocking with the 4. But when I'm forced to get the 5, I will.
Name the system. I have it.
All right. Well, drop your gamer tag info on here, and we might get up on that in the near future. If you haven't already, please make it a point. like and subscribe to the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. For Mike Zappy, for my man Idris Salam, I am your host, Richie, and it's been a pleasure bringing you this show. And it's even more of a pleasure to say that our next show is going to be a weekly preview. Football is back. Can't fucking wait.
Michael Parsons, Defensive Player of the Year.
Daniel Jones, MVP.